Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you, our lovely lecturer, is in a good state, and it is my pleasure for you to hear our little deep explanation about our main topic, which is Dewan Rakyat One House in Malaysian Parliament. On behalf of my group, I would like to welcome you today, and for your information, I'm gonna do a quick intro by introduce ourselves, or also known as the presenter this time. According to this slide, I'm gonna be the first presenter, which is Dania Safia Bentino Azizi, and my student ID is 2020619434. Alright, now let's imagine a big explosion as you were alive during the era of British rule right before our country Malaysia still not be able to achieve their own Independence Day. We also cannot given the chances by British government to voice out our opinion nor a problem. But right after we got free from the British colonies, or in different meaning which is the Independence Day, we finally got our right to speak. Malaysia is actually a federal constitutional monarchy with a ceremonial head of state and a monarch known as the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, who serves as Malaysia's paramount ruler and is of course got elected for a 5-year term from among 9 historical state rulers. The Malaysian Constitution was established in 1957, immediately after the state of what is now Peninsular Malaysia declared independence from the British, and it was decided to create a parliamentary democracy legislature with the Senate Dewan Negara as the upper house and the House of Representatives Dewan Rakyat as the lower house to resolve all issues arising. Next point are shown that the supreme ruler chooses a prime minister among the members of the House of Representatives. Following that, the monarch chooses the other cabinet ministers based on the prime minister's recommendations. Although the number of ministers is not fixed, they must all be members of the Federal Assembly. The federal government also includes a politically neutral civil service and an independent judiciary. That's all from my part. Next, I'm going to pass it to the next presenter, which is Nur Alia Suzana binti Tuah, about her slide, which is the appointment of members in the House of Representatives.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Alia Suzana binti Tuah and my matrix number is 20208-21246, and I will be presenting about appointment of members in the House of Representatives. Method of appointment of members in the House of Representatives or Dewan Rakyat are different from the method that is used to appoint members of House of Senate or Dewan Negara. So, members are elected by the people or citizen of Malaysia. The election is called general election. Every 5 years, members of the House of Representatives are elected in a general election. Each member of parliament must be sworn in before the Speaker of the House of Representatives before taking a seat in parliament. Such members must swear or vow to do their best to carry out their obligations as members of the House, to be loyal to Malaysia, and to follow, preserve, and defend the Constitution. A federal government can be formed by the parties having the most elected members. Before pandemic COVID-19 happened, the candidates will do campaign to promote their parties and also to attract and encourage people to vote them. Before they do campaign, candidates must initially deposit 10,000 ringgit in order to run for a parliamentary seat and 5,000 ringgit in order to run for a state seat. They will forfeit their deposit if they do not receive at least 1 per 8 of the total number of votes polled. Candidates must additionally pay an 5,000 ringgit campaign materials deposit for a parliamentary seat. The money will be refunded if all of the candidates' campaign materials have been cleaned up within 2 weeks before the election. Each constituency nominations paper are sent into the returning officer. The returning officer will announce the candidates immediately after, assuming they are qualified to run for office. Next, there are several rules that candidates need to follow. The rules are no inappropriate content, no unlawful forums, and no exceeding campaign expenditure restrictions of 200,000 ringgit for federal level votes and 100,000 ringgit for state level votes. If the candidates fail to prove the deposit for the campaign, then it is not allowed for the candidates to install or display any election materials. If convicted under the Election Offences Act 1954 about related matters, Election Offences Act 1954 is an act for the prevention of electoral offences and acts of corruption and unlawful acts in elections. The candidate can be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 1 year or a fine not exceeding 3,000 ringgit or both. For the parliamentary election is 5,000 ringgit and state assembly election is 3,000 ringgit. In addition, during election day, candidates are allowed to visit polling or counting place, the center counts central and group votes, the center of production, opening and counting of postal votes, and also official ballot counting center. After election process has been done, it is time for the winner to be decided. How are the winners chosen? Using first past the post or FPTP adopted from Britain. Malaysia still practices this kind of voting system. Voters cast their ballots for a candidate of their choosing under a first past the post electoral system, and the one with the most votes win. Minister in Prime Minister's Department, Datuk Seri Shahidan Kasim said in Dewan Rakyat that this system was appropriate for a country with a multiracial populace and was simple to comprehend. This system, first past the post, has proven able to unite the people of various races since it was practiced after independence, said Datuk Seri Shahidan Kasim. When a party or alliance gets more than half of the seats in parliament, a government is formed. With 222 seats available, 112 is the magic number required to achieve a legislative majority and form the government. Next, I will be presenting about membership of the House of Representatives. To become a member of the House of Representatives, a person must be nominated and won in parliamentary elections. There are 222 seats in total in House of Representatives. Candidates for each of the 222 seats are grouped into constituencies. In other words, each area in parliament is represented by one of the 222 constituencies. To be eligible for membership, the person must be a Malaysian citizen, at least 21 years old, be in a good mental health, not be a bankrupt who has not been discharged, and not be a member of both houses at the same time. In addition, a person also cannot be a member of House of Representatives if the person occupies a profit-making office, spends more money on an election campaign than is permitted by law, is convicted for a felony punishable by a jail sentence of 1 year or more, or a fine of 200,000 ringgit or more, or becomes a citizen of another nation. In addition, Malaysia also uses separation of power, but not that absolute because of the cabinet structure. There is no separation of powers between the executive and legislative branches. The Westminster system is built on the union of legislative and executive powers. As a democratic country, Malaysia's Prime Minister must be elected from the Dewan Rakyat. Moreover, members of House of Representatives are not permanent and they will be changing every 5 years through general election. In 2021, the current number of seats in House of Representatives is supposed to be 222 seats, but there are only 220 seats, which are Bersatu 31 seats, Barisan Nasional BN 42 seats, Bebas 5 seats, Gabungan Parti Sarawak GPS 18 seats, Parti Islam Malaysia PAS 18 seats, STAR 1 seat, Pakatan Harapan PH 98 seats, Parti Sarawak Bersatu 2 seats, Parti Bersatu Sabah 1 seat, and Pejuang 4 seats. The other 2 seats are Parlimen Batu Sapi and Parlimen Gerik, but the vacancy for the parliamentary seat is due to the death of its incumbent in 2020, which are Datuk Liu Vui Kiong from Warisan for Parlimen Batu Sapi and Allahyarham Datuk Hasbullah Osman from Barisan Nasional for Parlimen Gerik. The parliamentary seat was supposed to have been occupied by other candidates, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, by-elections could not be held. and the country was then in a state of emergency. That is all for me.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nordini Mastura binti Mustafa. My matrix numbers 2020616796 will be presenting about the termination of Dewan Rakyat. There are various important elements about the termination of Dewan Rakyat, which is known as the House of Representatives. Besides, the termination given to those who have been terminated from their services should be filled with more functional and responsible position to form a more effective national legislature. Firstly, the termination in Dewan Rakyat will occur when there is distrust and lack of confidence from majority the members of Dewan Rakyat to the Prime Minister because he lost through a vote of no confidence or failed to enact a budget. As we all know, the executive government, which consists of Prime Minister and his cabinet, must be suitable to hold the position and fulfill the responsibilities required of other members in Dewan Rakyat. This is considered a lack of confidence because the Prime Minister does not meet the required criteria, such as lack in some way, fail to fulfill his responsibilities or make decisions that other members believe harmful. On the other context, the termination of Dewan Rakyat also will be occurs when there is a dissolution of Parliament involving only the House of Representatives. This dissolution of Parliament refers to a system of mandatory simultaneous resignation by all members in Dewan Rakyat by replacing a better assembly to form a more competent legislative system. On the other words, it requires all of its members to resign at the same time with the hopes of a new and improved legislature convening later with different members. As we all know, basically the dissolution of Parliament must be approved by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong on the advice of the Prime Minister itself. However, they can terminate their office first by writing a letter to the Speaker of the House of Representatives. A general election must be held within 60 days following the dissolution of Parliament, and the next sessions of Parliament must be held within 120 days of the dissolution of Parliament, according to the Article 55(4) of the Federal Constitution.
Issues on Dewan Rakyat. Firstly, Dewan Rakyat Speaker bearing media coverage. There are some issues arise on this. Speaker Dewan, which is Datuk Azhar Azizan Harun, bars the media from enter the Parliament meeting. Media groups need to know why Datuk Azhar Harun didn't allow them to cover the Parliament. Media organisations should be given the freedom to cover Parliament proceeding. If by any chance, one media is not allowed, the onus is those who have the authority. Based on the National Union of the Journalists, NUJ, General Secretary Chin Seung Chu also called for the Speaker to be transparent and state why several media organisations were not allowed to cover the sitting. Secondly, the use of the national language in Parliament. Language allows us to convey our feelings and thought, and it is unique to our species since it allows us to express other cultures and community distinct beliefs and practices. Datuk Sri Azlina Othman said that the National Language Act and the Standing Order of the Dewan Rakyat govern the use of the national language in Parliament. She stated that any member of the House could use English or other languages other than the national language, which is Malay, when engaging in a debate or making a statement in Parliament with the consent of the Speaker.
Issue of Dewan Rakyat. One of the issue of Dewan Rakyat is about the current issue on the resignation of the Deputy Speaker of Dewan Rakyat, Datuk Sri Azlina Othman Said. She resigned on 23rd of August 2021 with the intention of giving more space to the government and the opposition to reschedule the Dewan Rakyat. After giving it a space to reset the function of Parliament, she will support whatever reform the government and the opposition want to do based on mutual wisdom. Another issue on Dewan Rakyat is the issue of endless debate. It is when members of Dewan Rakyat attack each other indiscriminately and disrespect others' members. Things like this happen not once but almost all the time the Dewan Rakyat met. The argument began when opposition members of the Dewan Rakyat have their opinions, so they argue on that. The situation continued with several other elected representatives also getting up for their own opinion. This led to a commission. Dewan Rakyat should be discussing the citizen worry and problem. Instead, the direction of the discussion changed to the unexpected event to an unnecessary debate. To resolve the commission, the Speaker of the House of Representatives ordered all representatives to sit quietly or leave. As a result, they gained bad reputation as well as tarnished the image of government in the eye of the people.
In a nutshell, there is no denying that the Dewan Rakyat is very necessary and important houses in Malaysia in undergoing the current of modernization in line with the various branches of turmoil that plague our country. This is said to be so because with the existence of various problems from various channels, when there is a systematic Dewan Rakyat conference, it can be a place of intelligent thinking and solution in combating and solving the problem faced by our country. In addition, with the Parliament, which is an institution that represents the people according to the protocol in the parliamentary season in the Dewan Rakyat, it can present all the problems faced by the public while meeting the criteria desired by the community in their daily life. For example, that we can present here is during the presence of coronavirus disease that is plaguing our country today. Despite the existence of such problems that have affected various types of surplus living, but the accountability played by the Dewan Rakyat has been able to create stability on the efficiency of meeting compliance toward the regulation among the members of Parliament in combating the problem. With this context, we can conclude that Dewan Rakyat give us a lot of benefits either for the country or the public.